Hello and welcome to the first episode of Experts, which is my new video series on YouTube. And today I'm joined by Polly, who is the Director of Communications for the BET. Now, Polly, hi, thank you very much for joining me today. Would you like to just briefly explain what your job role is now?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Gabe. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me. As you say, I'm Director of Communications for Bowhunt Education Trust, or BET, and that is a group of 7 secondary schools located on the south of England. And I'm responsible for the internal and the external communications for the trust.
Thank you. And so I think someone who's quite experienced in communications, it's great to hear from you, especially as a young person myself, but for all the young people watching, it'll be really interesting to hear about your career journey and your career path and what you've gone through to get to where you are today. So I think let's start off by finding out what you did. Education, sort of as academia. Did you go to university? And what did you study, if so?
Uh, okay, yes, I did go to university. I suppose you could describe my education as fairly sort of you could say sort of textbook, or at the time anyway. I mean, I'm quite old now, so I did 10 GCSEs. I went to a state primary and middle school. Then my parents decided to actually put me into a private school for 5 years to do my GCSEs, which I think probably worked well for me. And I came out with some good results there. But then I decided to take myself off to a state sixth form. Went to Havant Sixth Form College, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I did A levels there. So I did English literature, because my love had always been English, geography and art, and then I did something called general studies, which was a sort of no-brainer then, because you could do it after about a week's study, and I got an A in that, so that was good. Then I went off to the University of Exeter to do an English literature degree there, a Bachelor of Arts, which I got a 2-1 in. And then my dream really from the age of 10 had always been to be a secondary school English teacher. So I went straight on, age 21, to do a PGCE in secondary English and drama.
And did you then use that? Did you then actually start teaching, or did you think another route was open?
I didn't. So that's where I started to sort of go off the standard track, I suppose. The way PGCEs worked at Exeter were that you did a term of sort of learning the theory behind teaching, and then you were put into 2 different placement schools for the final 2 terms. And my placement schools were very challenging for different reasons. One was in a very deprived area and had lots of sort of behavioural problems. The second was a very high achieving school. Those aspects of the PGCE, coupled with the fact that I was very young and I was teaching sixth formers who I just used to treat a bit as if they were my brother, which wasn't particularly professional, made me think, actually, this isn't quite right for me now. I'm not going to carry on with my PGCE into my NQT year, my newly qualified teacher year. And instead, because you could postpone your NQT year, I think you still can. And so I went to London, because all my friends seemed to be ending up in London, and did perhaps what's quite similar to you, Gabe. Found my feet in a client executive role at a big public relations agency.
And I think, although you didn't use your PGCE to its extent and you didn't actually want to become a teacher in the end, you sort of took a different path. That's given you so many good skills, hasn't it? I mean, presenting skills. As a teacher, you need to be able to stand in front of people and talk and have the confidence to be able to do so. And I think that's such a vital skill that you've gained from that. So of course it wasn't to waste at all, and you took a different pathway, but there's still those transferable skills, and that's a great example of changing a pathway, but still being able to utilise the skills that you learn in the old pathway, and finding out where you think you're best at, and using old skills at something that you don't really want to do anymore.
Totally. And I think, if I'm jumping the gun here a bit in sort of describing my career path, but I actually, yes, as you say, presentation skills were incredibly useful to learn, but also just the preparation and the hard work that goes into being a teacher. The amount of work that is sort of suddenly put in front of you as a PGCE student is something that I had never encountered before, and it really knocks you for six. And actually, it's incredibly good preparation for any other job, I think, if you're going to kind of go off into another area. And so, whilst I stayed in public relations for a good sort of 10 years, I think, after that, I then, various things happened in my life which led me back to teaching, and I then did complete my NQT at age 31 and taught in a pretty tough inner city Portsmouth school for 2.5 years, which I loved. So it was sort of a cyclical process in a way. Now I'm obviously working in schools in the education environment, but I'm not a teacher. But I understand so much of that side of being in school as a result of my sort of career history.
Well, there we go. I think it goes to show that it's a circular process, and that you have this passion for educating young people, but you also have a passion for PR and communications, and that you've sort of bridged them now, and you've got to a point in your career where you can do both your passions at once, which is fantastic. I think a lot of people don't get the chance to do that. You've done something where you've done two completely separate job roles, and now you've sort of combined them into one. Which is great.
I feel very lucky, and I have to say it's not really that clever of me to have done that. It wasn't planned, but I suppose you could also say I did see opportunities within BET and sort of and went for them because I could see that my skills and knowledge and expertise would set me up very well for this particular role, which didn't exist. I sort of created it, I suppose. But yeah, absolutely. I think it just goes to show that staying on one path, I think, is quite an outdated mode of thinking for careers now. Anyway, I think most people sort of expect to have 5-10 different jobs throughout their life now, much more than just one clear trajectory. And I think personally it's a really good thing.
Yeah, no, it's great to build up different experiences, and I think that's that's how you get to these senior positions in business, is that you have different life experiences and different work experiences, because to be able to build up that huge idea of what business is, you have to do different job roles in different places, and sort of learn a bit more about life. You don't just appear at the top at the age of 20. You have to work your way up and find out what different people do in different fields, and that helps you, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I always remember my mum saying, when she must have been my age, to me, that she still hasn't found what she wants to do. And I mean, she was a documentary maker. She taught, she lectured in filmmaking, and she did lots of other things too. And I think it's quite freeing to think that you don't have to decide on what you're going to be.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the reasons actually I picked an apprenticeship, is because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was interested in marketing. So I took a digital marketing apprenticeship to learn these transferable business skills, which I can sort of use realistically in any business, because I've learned about how businesses work, and I've got that work experience at a huge business in the world. So that's kind of it. I don't really know that I want to do a specific job role, but I know I want to do something within marketing. So that's why I've sort of done this apprenticeship. And I think that's the beauty, isn't it, of it?
It is, and I think you've clearly, I've known you for a few years, I suppose, and you've always had a flair for talking to people and listening to people, actually, which is a really valuable skill, and not many people have it. But also being creative and innovative, and you've always, I hate the phrase, but you've always thought outside the box. Even when I knew you a few years ago, and I think. This feels natural to me talking to you today, because I know that you're interested in these things, and you will take the skills that you're developing now and use them in whatever area that you think you might want to in the future.
Exactly. I think it's quite a cheeky thing of me, but I'm doing this video series not only for all the young people in the UK, who need to learn about this sort of stuff and about career journeys, but also primarily for myself. I do want to learn myself as well. I am a young person who's interested in this stuff, and that's sort of realistically why I've started this video series, is because I want to speak to these people myself as well. It's not just that I want to hear it, it's just really exciting for me as a young person to hear from people like yourself who have traversed the sort of the working world
Yeah.
so well, and then I can sort of learn from that and hopefully succeed myself. Everyone has, even if they don't realise, some form of mentor in their life, and I know a working world mentor is possibly different to a personal life mentor. But is there anyone who particularly inspired you in the world of work, whether that was a celebrity that you looked up to, or a business professional that you looked up to, or if it was someone you knew or someone you worked with?
Um, I mean, the short answer is yes, but it's not. But there hasn't just been one. There have been a couple of standout people that I could mention, and the first one would be, sounds quite sort of stereotypical, but it was my English teacher for GCSEs, Mrs. Davidson, who was just the most incredible teacher and inspiring person, and very quiet, actually quite reserved, but so encouraging and so intelligent and patient, and lots of qualities I really admired. But in the world of work, I also worked for a short time at Innocent Drinks. Again, when it was in its infancy, really, there were probably about 15 people when I joined. Now, God, thousands and thousands of employees.
Huge. I think it got bought out by
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, didn't it? A couple of
Yeah,
years back. So that's
yeah, very
probably,
good.
it's
That was a
expanded,
while
hasn't
ago.
it?
But Richard, Adam, and I can't remember the name of the other one. There are three of them. They were again so inspiring. I mean, I'd have breakfast with them every morning. They were just on the ground the whole time, but never stopped, ever stopped. They had energy, they had vision, and they really did care about the people that worked for them and with them. So that was another really inspiring place to work. I just think there are people out there who really have broken the mold in so many ways, and I've been really fortunate to work with them.
I mean, there's a few things I want to touch on there. Obviously, working at Innocent is such an exciting thing, and I think sort of an aspiration actually for a lot of people, a lot of young people especially, who want to go to businesses like that. What an exciting business to work for! And you mentioned that it was quite early on in its infancy, and how exciting is that to watch a business at the time did it start taking off while you were there? Was that the time it was growing?
Yeah, it definitely was. And again, talking about mentors, the lady that I worked with, who was the PR manager, that was her title. She was the only one really doing anything to do with PR for Innocent at that time. And I was brought in to assist her. So it was just her and me doing the public relations for Innocent. And they'd only just recently stopped ferrying the bottles of drinks around to sandwich shops in London, on sort of little go-karts, or I think they had one van covered in grass at the time and one van painted as a cow, and that was it. And they were in a business park in Goldhawk Road in West London, which was called Fruit Towers. And I know now they've got headquarters all over, massive buildings all over the place, and they're called Fruit Towers still. But at the time, it really was just this one place. And the inside of the warehouse building, which was the office, was decked out with AstroTurf, and we all had our lunches on picnic benches.
I think that's so important in the world of work, because you've got to feel relaxed around people, haven't you? And that's one of the most important things, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've got to build relationships.
Yeah.
And I think another reason why I've actually been really fulfilled at work recently is because I know the people that I work with so well, because we've forged those relationships. And I think that is perhaps going to be a challenge in the future, as far as we can see at the moment anyway, if people are going to be restricted to their home offices or their bedrooms or whatever, and they're not going to get that chance necessarily to physically interact as much as we are all used to.
Have you got any advice on how to be hired or promoted, or the best ways to go about that? And I know you're a freelancer for a while, so to be able to be freelance, you have to go for a lot of interviews, you have to speak to a lot of people, and you have to sell yourself. So what advice have you got? Clearly you're good at that. What advice have you got for young people who want to try and sell themselves and get hired, or go for their first promotion?
I think you can't go wrong really if you convey the fact that you're passionate. You know, passionate's a bit of a stale word, I suppose, but that you have conviction in your ability to do the job that you're going for because you really care about it. I think, you know, do your research. If you're going for an interview, always be prepared. Doesn't You can't be over prepared really, and it's so easy to be prepared now. You just Google where you're going, you know, and then you look up the founders of the business, and then you look, you know, LinkedIn, you know, you just really do your research, be prepared, um, and be yourself, because at the end of the day, people are still, for the time being anyway, hiring people, not robots. So they'll be interested in you and what you can bring to the table for them.
Coming back to sort of the fact that you have been a freelancer in multiple places, you know, once you've got through the interview stage, you've got to try and build the respect of your team and build these relationships off the get go. And possibly, you know, they've been a team, you know, they're an existing team, they've been a team for however many months or years before that, and you come in. How do you then, you know, make sure you slot in, you're the perfect piece of the puzzle, and how do you ensure that you are respected as part of that team off the get go?
I've been lucky in my freelance positions in that I've always worked with nice people, but I think you have to be professional. You know, you have to think, well, I'm here because they're paying me to do a job, and you know, as long as you're up to it. And of course, you know, you might have imposter syndrome or all those things that I think most people suffer from. But actually, at the end of the day, if you've got the qualifications needed and you're there because your CV shows that you can do the job that you've been employed to do, you should be fine. You know, people are generally nice. So do the job as well as you can, and be friendly.
What you say there is completely true, and something really to that will resonate with a lot of young people, and they really need to think about is you've been employed for a reason. You know, if you're doing, you know, an internship or an apprenticeship, or you've come in at a junior role, you know, you have been employed for a reason. You know, you need to really appreciate yourself and realise that you have been employed because you are able to do that job. You know, they've seen ability in you and they've given you the opportunity.
Yeah, have confidence, because you will be there because you deserve to be there.
A lot of it really has come down to building relationships with people and making sure that, you know, you get on with people, and that clearly is such an important thing in the world of work.
It's very important. I mean, yes, you mustn't negate the fact that you need to, you know, as I say, you need to be punctual and smart and professional and keen to learn and all of those things. But yeah, I think in the end, we're all trying to make a living and enjoy ourselves while we you know, stretch ourselves at the same time intellectually. So everyone's kind of in the same boat.
Well, thank you very much, Polly, and I think that's been really interesting. Thank you for joining me in episode 1, and I think that's been really helpful. And of course, I'll be continuing with this video series, so we'll have a lot more people like Polly on here that will hopefully give us some more clarity on the working world and give us some more advice. So, but until then, thank you very much, Polly, for joining me.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.